No voice, sir.
So good evening, friends. Meeting again the session of Organon philosophy, and we're discussing regarding Stuart Close philosophy. We have discussed many aspects of the chapter, the general pathology of homeopathy, where Close has tried to correlate the general homeopathic pathology with general pathology. Many aspects of general pathology included by modern science have already been explained by Hahnemann 50 to 60 years back. And how it happened, what was Hahnemannian thought, and how it has been reflected in the modern pathology after 50 years, 60 years, he tried to explain over there. We have discussed in length the last part, that is the antidotes or toxicology and its antidotes, the three varieties of antidotes, the dynamic antidote, or also called as physiological antidote, number two, that is the chemical antidote and mechanical antidote in length. And after explaining that, then he started explaining about what is science and why homeopathy is a science. Science is nothing but the experimented facts. The experimented facts which shows again and again the same results, it is included as a science, or it is concluded as a scientific entity. Homeopathy is the only medical science which is based upon those scientific experimentation. Whatever Hahnemann have explained in this 6th edition of Organ of Medicine is the result of science, scientific experimentation. And he tried to explain over there, in order to get a perfect therapeutics, true therapeutics, we must know the true pathology. Both things are necessary. For true pathology, it is not just a visible pathology. It is the pathology which includes the subjective symptoms as well as objective features. Both comes together to form the true pathology. In the similar manner, when we apply the true therapeutics, it also considers both the things, the subjective as well as objectives. And both of them, if matches on the basis of law of similars, and we apply that principle, we can get the ideal cure. This is so important to understand. He started explaining about the concept of therapeutics over there. Therapeutics is nothing but the applied medicine on the some specific curative principle. And that aspect he started explaining about, and we have to learn what is exactly there in the mind of Close regarding the therapeutics. Some part of it we have discussed in yesterday's lecture. Let us start with the next paragraph on page number 110. What he says about the therapeutics. Therapeutics as a science exemplified in homeopathy rests upon two series of phenomena. So it is based upon two series of phenomena. Which are two series? He explained the phenomena of diseases and the phenomena of drugs or agents used in treatment of diseases. Phenomenon means expressions. Phenomena means manifestations. Homeopathic therapeutics depends upon two phenomena. Phenomena of diseases means manifestation of the disease in the form of signs and symptoms. Used to get whole totality of the symptoms. You get that totality as a manifestation, one phenomenon in natural diseases. And when you prove homeopathic remedies on healthy human being, again it produces a phenomena, that is the manifestations, a artificial disease in the form of signs and symptoms, again one phenomena. So there are two series of phenomena, phenomena of diseases and phenomena of the drug. These two series of phenomena are connected by the general law. So what is the law which you used to use? Is the law of similars. So phenomena of the diseases must match with the phenomena of the disease in order to get the cure. Systematized knowledge of the phenomena of diseases constitutes the science of pathology. See, here he explains the systematized knowledge of phenomena of diseases. Systematized knowledge means what? The knowledge of diseases which is according to the classification. You must be able to classify diseases in a proper way so that you can reach to the right therapeutics or true therapeutics. Unless we classify, we can't. We must be able to differentiate what is dynamic, what is adynamic. If it is adynamic, what should be your therapeutics? If it is dynamic, what should be your therapeutics? If it is dynamic, again you have to differentiate whether it is acute or chronic. If it is acute, again you have to differentiate whether it is individual, whether it is sporadic, whether it is epidemic, whether it is endemic. If it is chronic, then you have to find it out whether it is true chronic, whether it is false chronic, whether it is artificial chronic. And if true chronic, whether it is single or complex, that is in the form of SORA, psychosis, syphilis, or it is mixed miasmatic as a complex, soro-psychotic, soro-syphilitic, soro-psychosyphilitic or psychosyphilitic. So you have to understand the specifically a systematized knowledge of the diseases. If you are able to catch that, you can apply the therapeutics. If you don't, you can't. So see, he is very clear about his thoughts. These thoughts one must learn. So he explains over there, systematized knowledge of the phenomena of diseases constitutes science of pathology. Systematized knowledge of the phenomena of drugs constitutes the science of pharmacology. So second science is science of pharmacology, detailed study of each and every remedy. We must be able to understand whole core of the remedy, not only the keynotes. You must able to understand the subjective as well as objective data, whatever is available with us, so that we can apply that on the basis of law of similar. So that is not that knowledge he explains, it is by the name of knowledge of science of pharmacology, where you know the pharmacology of each and every remedy. How is the allium cepa, how is the euphrasia, how is the aconite, how is the lycopodium, how is the sulfur, every remedy and its details. Then and then you can apply that knowledge. Systematized knowledge of the laws, principles, and methods which connect the two series constitutes the science of therapeutics, and effectual use of these in treating and curing the sick constitutes the art of healing and or applied therapeutic. If you have thorough knowledge about these two series of phenomena, that is knowledge of diseases as well as knowledge of the drugs, but if you don't know the how to apply that, if you don't know the laws, then you cannot apply. So systematized knowledge of the all laws, the doctrines should be there. The law of similars, the law of simplex, the law of minimum dose, the doctrine of vital force, the doctrine of drug proving, the doctrine of drug dynamization, the doctrine of chronic diseases. Every law you must know thoroughly so that you can apply these two series of phenomena uh, and get the results. If you know that, then this is called as applied therapeutics, or this is called as true therapeutics. This is called as art of healing. See, in one paragraph, he tried to explain many things, many more things. He tried to explain exactly what is knowledge of diseases or phenomena of disease, the phenomena of drugs or knowledge of drugs, and its application. Three important things which he tried to explain in this specific paragraph, and two which he called by the name of art of healing or applied therapeutics. In a true science of medicine, pathology, therapeutics, pharmacology, and toxicology, as well as medical, physiological, and pharmaceutical chemistry, are fundamentally one in having for their principal object the observation, study, and treatment of the effects of all agents which act either pathogenically or therapeutically upon the living organism, whether it be a mechanical, chemical, electrical, or dynamical manner. See, again, he explains thoroughly certain aspects. You must be able to understand what type of disease it is. If you are able to understand the disease, then you are able to cure that. For example, a patient is brought to you. The accident has happened on the road, and patient is brought to you, and his whole upper extremity is broken, and it is he brought his hand with him, and he said, "Doctor, this is what happened. Give me homeopathic remedy." Whether you will going to treat him only with the homeopathic remedy and his hand again will going to get joint? No. You have to understand what is his problem. You know it is mechanical problem, then your treatment should be mechanical. First important is that there is a role of surgery. You must be able to understand. Then you ask them to go for surgery. Then that should be totally, the surgery should be made. In order to do a rest of the treatment, that is the dynamic things, then you can apply homeopathic remedy later. Here the question arises that what is the role of homeopathy in such types of cases? In such types of cases, first you must understand whether it is a field of homeopathy or not a field of homeopathy. If it is a field of homeopathy, then you can go for homeopathy as a primary line of treatment. But you know this is surgical, then you have to treat him surgically. So you have to understand what exactly the disease is. If the patient comes to you with organophosphorus poisoning and he asks for homeopathic remedy, it is not a dynamic disease, it is a material disease. Then your line of treatment should be material and it is not a dynamic. So you must be able to differentiate all those things. And that's why he explains the true therapeutics always depends, or true science of therapeutics always depends upon what type of diseases with which he approaches. It depends and it varies from individual to individual. Your line of treatment is based upon all those aspects taking together. And that's why the treatment might be mechanical, the treatment might be chemical, it might be electrical in the form of electric shock. Sometimes it is needed if the patient is in a suspended animation state where heart has stopped beating, patient is in shock. You have to give him electrical shock in the form of defibrillator, with the help of defibrillator, and you have to bring back his vitality again. So that might be required. And last point which he explained is the dynamic manner. So he never explained, Hahnemann have never explained like that it is the only method with which you treat the patients. Homeopathy is no only method. No, it is homeopathic management. It depends upon what case you are dealing with. You have to think first. And that's why in this close philosophy, he has given one important chapter. And in that chapter, he has explained the DEX 5 inclusion exclusion criteria, which are the cases which are excluded for the homeopathy and which are included in homeopathy. If you are able to understand them, then you will be able to understand what you can treat with the help of homeopathy. And then your approach depends. So all those things which he tried explain or trying to explain over there are four ways, four things which you have to think, whether it is mechanical treatment, whether patient requires chemical treatment, whether patient requires electrical treatment, or whether patient requires purely dynamical treatment. One fundamental principle underlies them, the law of reciprocal action or equivalence. Law of reciprocal action or equivalence. Law of reciprocal action means actions and reactions are equal and opposite. While developing the natural disease, this law is applicable. There is some action happens on the body, something happens externally to which the human reacts. That action is sufficient to disturb the vital force, because of which the reaction is disturbed and the disease happens. So which law works? Law of reciprocal action works. In the similar manner, if it has been produced in the dynamic plane, if you want to treat, you have to apply the same law. Again, here to give certain stimulus in the form of homeopathic medicine, which is not which will not produce primary action, which will just a stimulus. Again, vital force reacts to that stimulus. So again, a law of reciprocal action works. So in the development of disease, the law of reciprocal action works. In the process of recovery, again, the law of reciprocal action works. And that's why homeopathic medicine is able to cure the patient, because both natural disease develops in dynamic plane, the artificial disease in the dynamic plane. And that's why nature's law of cure works, that is, a weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one, if latter is very similar to former in its manifestations, whilst differing in kind. So here two series of phenomena happens, which happens with the law of reciprocal action. The first phenomena is natural disease, second phenomena is artificial disease, and if you treat with the help of proper similar remedy, then the cure takes place. So he explains very clearly that one fundamental principle implies or underlies them all, the law of reciprocal action or equivalence, the law of chemical affinity and definite proportion, the law of physiological or dynamical affinity, the law of assimilation, the law of antidotes, or the repulsion of similars, upon which is based the theory of cure, all phases of universal law of mutual action, which governs every action that occurs in the universe. See, he is trying to explain different laws, out of which the first law, law of chemical affinity. What is law of chemical affinity? Affinity means attraction. It depends, it varies what ingredient you are going to utilize for the treatment. If you are using specific remedy, for example, a LMC, a common example will take onion. In crude form, if you cut the onion, you get certain symptomatology. If you are cutting the onions, nothing enters in your body, but still your eyes gets irritated. There is lacrimation. There is oozing from your nose. Why it happens without entering in your body? Because the fumes which comes out dynamically affects your mucous membrane, ultimately produce its effect, even though materially it has never entered in your body. There is a chemical affinity directly when it has been cut and it goes inside over there and it works. But if same onion, if you consume in your food, it never causes such symptoms. See the difference. This difference you have to catch. This is the dynamical effect which used to happen because of chemical affinity. It has a specific affinity for mucous membranes and eye symptoms, but it is a dynamic affinity. In the crude form, it never used to produce its effects when consumed materially. But if you prepare a medicine called LMCPA, again in the dynamic form, and give it to the patient, to the prover, it will going to produce a similar type of symptom. See, this is what he wants to explain. There are many laws, nature's laws, which used to work. These are not the laws of homeopathy. These are the laws of science, basic sciences. Laws of definite proportion. How do we prepare our medicines? There are three varieties of scales which we used to follow. The first is decimal scale. The second is centesimal scale. And third is 50 millisimal scale. We are using the proportions. We are using 1:10 as a proportion in decimal scale. In centesimal, we used to use the 1:100 ratio. It is not preparing a tea, it is preparing a medicine in definite proportions. Because of which we used to get the same medicinal properties when we prepare according to the scientific method, and that's why we used to define it in the very specific manner. What is the definition of the doctrine of drug dynamization? It is a mathematico-mechanical process by which the inherent medicinal properties of the crude drug substance gets aroused into the activity. See, this is very simple method. Here you are bringing out the inherent medicinal properties which are absent in their crude form. It is a mathematico-mechanical. The first word is very important. We used to use the mathematics. When we prepare decimal scale, we used to take one part of the medicinal substance with the 9 parts of the vehicle. When we prepare the centesimal scale, we used to take 1 part of the medicinal substance with 99 parts of the alcohol. When we prepare it in the 50 millisimal scale, there is 1:50,000 ratio is there. And this is the definite proportions which we used to follow over there in homeopathy. And that's why the medicines which we prepare are more scientific. The law of physiological or dynamical affinity is also there. This also we have discussed while discussing this. The law of assimilation. What is law of assimilation and what is assimilation? Assimilation means the process by which we assimilate whatever we have consumed. For example, we have consumed certain food products. We have consumed it by mouth, it enters in our body, it enters into the stomach, then from stomach it has been made small into small parts, then again it has been made fine, then it enters into the small intestine, then it goes to large intestine, and this whole process it has been it has made so fine and absorbable, and whatever is needed is taken inside the blood, and the whole process where assimilation takes place. Whatever is needed is taken for the purpose of preparing energy, and rest of things are thrown away. If this assimilation process is disturbed, person is deceased. There are many patients where you get that the patient's assimilation is disturbed. He is eating well while losing his flesh. Which are the remedies? The remedies are abrotanum, losing flesh while eating well. Remedy is natrum muriaticum, basically, the iodum specifically, sanicula, losing flesh while eating well, tuberculinum, where this law of assimilation disturbs. Same is true when this law of assimilation is disturbed, our remedy, you have to bring back that law of assimilation in the patient. The law of antidotes or the repulsion of similars means same thing which we are using the homeopathic remedy, we used to based which is based or acts on the law of repulsion. There is action and reaction. You give the LMCPA 200 to the patient and your vital force reacts. It is not the action of LMCPA directly on you. It is the reaction of the human being against the LMCPA 200 stimulus. So see, everything is scientific. Every law from the basic sciences are included in the homeopathic therapeutics. That's why it becomes the scientific therapeutics. So every law and doctrine which are part and parcels of the basic sciences goes hand in hand with homeopathic laws, and that's why every every aspect of treating the patient with the help of homeopathy is true therapeutics. Every agent or stimulus external to the organism which has the power to excite vital reaction in the organism comes legitimately under the universal law and may be applied for the therapeutic purposes in accordance therewith when in corollaries of the law are known. See what he is explaining. He is explaining one of the very important entity. Whatever ingredient has a direct effect on the human being to produce a reaction. We have taken the example of LMCPA. We have many remedies which we prepare from the food ingredients. We have garlic, from which we prepare LM sativa. We have then the food parsley, ajwain, ova, from which we prepare petroselinum. There are all ingredients which has capacity to alter the human state of health, which has medicinal properties, to which human reacts. If we potentize, apply to the human being, it used to produce the whole symptomatology. There are many toxins in our homeopathy as medicines. We have rustox, we have aconite, we have nux vomica, we have nux moschata, and many more. We have many minerals, metals in their crude form, doesn't have any effect on human being, but when they potentize, they shows their inherent properties. How they work? They work on the same principle. Action and reactions are equal and opposite. In their that specific stimulus, human reacts. And that's why we have aurum prepared from the gold. We have cuprum prepared from the copper. We have argentum prepared from the silver. So these remedies in crude form never affects human beings so strongly, but in their dynamic form, they affect with the human body. And these are all stimulus. This works on the basis of law of mutual action or reciprocal action, which is also called as Newton's third law of motion. Action and reactions are equal and opposite. So these are the things which he tried to explain over there. There is one question: consuming turmeric and etc. spices doesn't produce bad effects of medicine in our normal life, sir. Yes, consuming turmeric, spices, those goes in crude form, produces only primary action, not the secondary action. So those will not going to affect you so strongly, because that is the primary action which we used to follow when we consume it materially. Simple example is coffee. If we consume coffee, it produces a freshness because it is in material form. But if you give coffee in the dynamic form and give it to the patient, or consume yourself, it will not produce the freshness as the coffee in material form produces. So their primary action is different. Primary action is different, secondary action is different. Homeopathic remedy, when given to in the dynamic doses, it used to produce a reaction, not the primary action. Whole Materia Medica is based upon the secondary action of the human vital force against the stimulus. And that's why it never produces any side effect, because it is not the action of the medicine, because you are not giving the crude forms, we are using the dynamic medicines, and when we are using it in 30, 200, 1 m potency, it never contains the material entity. It has totally becomes the dynamic. After 12C, it is completely become dynamic. After 24X, it has completely become dynamic. That is what is called as the Avogadro's hypothesis. And this is what he wants to explain over there. I think we'll stop over here and we'll meet on Monday with this chapter. We are nearly about on the concluding part of this chapter, but still many more pages are there. We'll learn all the concepts which are there in this Stuart Close philosophy, in this specific chapter, General Pathology of Homoeopathy, because these concepts are, if your concepts are clear, you can apply medicine very confidently. Still, there are many wrong concepts are there in people's mind regarding the action of medicine. Everyone considers it acts like allopathic medicine. No, not at all. Allopathic medicine acts under primary action, homeopathic medicine does not. That is very important thing one must know. And that's why we'll learn this chapter paragraph by paragraph, but making the whole concepts clear in our mind. So that's all for today. Thank you being there. And today we're going to finish one more remedy was remaining from second year syllabus, that is natrum phosphoricum. At 8 o'clock we'll meet and we'll learn the natrum phosphoricum from Borix Materia Medica. And then we'll start with the third year syllabus. Shahrukh, my request is there again, you send that list of the remedies to me. I have missed that. If you have list of remedies, just forward it to me so that we'll start it from Monday.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thanks a lot and meet again at 8 o'clock.